And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host Kenneth Grunfelder, and as always, it's great to have you guys here on this Thursday. We obviously have a game tonight, which we will preview later in the show. And as always, we have a lot to discuss here on this Thursday. But before I get into that, I just want to remind you guys to tip or donate or to get your comments recognized, make sure to go to streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. Again, that really helps the show. And for bonus coverage materials that are not covered by this broadcast, make sure to go to patreon.com and search up GSMC Sports Network, and that is where you can find all the exclusive content on all of our podcasts here on the GSMC Sports Network. And when it comes to donations and tips, so obviously, when you have a lot of people in the chat, it definitely is hard to get your comments recognized. So if you want to be like the headliner, you want your comment to stick out and be a super chat, that's where like the donations and tips come into play, and that's when you get your chance to have your comment recognized, and then I see it, and then I, talk about that on the show, and also not even just on the live stream, but also like on the Patreon side of things as well, because that definitely could become what the Patreon show would be, is answering all the super chats that I didn't get to during the show, during the live portion of the show. So then I use, the Patreon show to kind of answer the rest of the questions in the chat that I didn't get to. So, but yeah, I just wanted to mention that as well. So, for today's show, what we're going to start off with is talking about the latest news and headlines around the league, and that's kind of something that I did with the baseball show. Obviously, there's a couple of things that I want to talk about to start off the show, so we'll do that. Then in the second part of the show, it's kind of like the headliner for the show today, is talking about Justin Herbert, and is he overrated or not? Because that's another thing that I've seen on social media, and people talking about it. So we'll get into that. In the third part of the show, we'll talk about Bill Belichick and whether or not this could possibly be his last year with the Patriots, and we'll get into that. And then in the final part of the show, we'll preview tonight's game between Jacksonville and New Orleans. So let's get right into the first part of the show, which is talking about the latest news and headlines around the league. So one of the big things to come out of yesterday was Colts quarterback Anthony Richardson is going to miss the remainder of the season. Obviously, had the shoulder injury, and unfortunately, he is going to undergo season-ending shoulder surgery to repair that. So he's done for the year, and it's unfortunate because he looked like he was, on his way to having a good season, and unfortunately, it gets cut short. That is, you never want to hear that. So he sustained the injury to the AC joint in his right throwing shoulder on a running play in the second quarter of the Week 5 matchup with the Titans. And, he got placed on injured reserve. And, the Colts got, extensive information on it, and they determined that the best course of action for Anthony Richardson was to get the surgery. So he's done for the season, and you just don't. It's just unfortunate, and injuries again really just continue to be the worst part of the game. So he finished this season with 577 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, and a pick. So hopefully he comes back next year. And, the Colts, hopefully they have their future quarterback because, it sure looked like it. And, that got cut short. Because, they've been going through this QB carousel for the last several years now with Phillip Rivers and, Carson Wentz, Nick Foles, all these guys. And, now it seemed like they finally had the answer. And now he's hurt. So Gardner Minshew is going to be the quarterback the rest of the way. And he's a quality backup, but that's what he is. He's a backup quarterback. And I don't really expect the Colts to do anything now. Because, listen, now the South looked like, for, the first several weeks of the season that, yeah, it's going to be close. But I think now the Jags are the team that's going to, separate themselves. So, but yeah, just a terrible, terrible news there. Also news, guys coming back from injury. You have Jalen Ramsey, who, has missed, the beginning of the season. He's, going to return late in the season. He returned to practice for the Dolphins, so that's big. Obviously, he was a trade acquisition for them. So that's big news for the Dolphins, a team that, has Super Bowl aspirations, and especially, this week, got a big game coming up with the Eagles this weekend. So obviously that's a game that we will headline in tomorrow's show. That's a big piece to get back. So yeah. So that there's that. Also, the Chiefs, they actually did make a trade yesterday for a wide receiver. They traded for a wide receiver, Mecole Hardman from the Jets, who was previously with the Chiefs. So he'll be coming back. They swapped late round picks. And obviously, Mecole Hardman isn't a star wide receiver, but you know what? He's got the familiarity with the system in Kansas City. And the Chiefs' offense, has kind of struggled a little bit this year to get going. Looking at Hardman's stats, obviously drafted in 2019 with the Chiefs, had 538 yards, receiving that year 6 touchdowns. The following year, 560 for 4 touchdowns, 693 in 2021 with 2 touchdowns. Last year, 297 and 4 touchdowns. And he did miss a lot of time last year with injury, so didn't really play that much. And with the Jets, 1 reception for 6 yards. That's it. That's it for Hardman. I think there's still work that needs to be done for the Chiefs. I think they should still try to maybe get another wide receiver, possibly. But I think they definitely needed to do this because, Kadarius Toney really hasn't panned out. Rashee Rice has been, has a couple touchdowns on the season. Valdez-Scantling, he's good for a big play here and there. Same thing with Justin Watson, who's injured. But they need another receiver there, and Hardman, that's good for them that they were able to get him back. I mean, that's what the Chiefs are doing. They're getting guys back that played for them previously. They got Frank Clark back. After the Broncos released him, and now they get Hardman back. So maybe they'll trade for Tyreek Hill. Nah, but that was a good trade for them. Obviously, again, there still needs to be work done there because, the receiving core still isn't great. And, again, Hardman is not a superstar wide receiver, but that at least helps, So, but the Chiefs got a receiver, and you expected them to do that. So, so there's that. Also news as well, on the commissioner side of things. So Roger Goodell was extended. So I know everybody is thrilled about that because, everybody just loves to talk about Roger Goodell and, the great things that he does for the game. So contract extension through 2027. That was expected, but seriously, obviously people aren't happy about that. I would imagine. Everybody's got their complaints about him. But listen, at the end of the day, the owners, they love him. So they're going to keep extending him, and, he's going to be the commissioner of football for the long haul. So, and obviously everybody has their complaints with him, with the officials and, him saying, the officiating's been fine. And I get it. Believe me, I'm the same way too. But at the end of the day, the owners are the ones that employ this guy. So, as long as they're happy, he's going to continue to be, the commissioner for the NFL for years to come. But yeah, so for fans, they're gonna have to deal with it for the next 4 years. So, but yeah, so that's really all the major news that I wanted to go over because again, there was I didn't want to put them all into one segment because I mean there's only so much you could talk about with a lot of this stuff, but yeah, those are some of the headlines that I wanted to get to. Injuries again continue to just hurt the season. The Chiefs get a wide receiver. The commissioner's back. So, yeah, that's it with the headlines. Also, woke up this morning. Allergies were kicking my butt today. And you could hear it. My nose is. I sound very nasally today. I was blowing my nose like crazy, before I came on. But again, it's that time of the year. It was bothering me last week, and now it's doing the same thing this week. So, just gonna have to deal with it. But obviously, again, it's that time of the year, and you don't like to deal with it. But that's just how it is. So, yeah, forgive me if I sound very nasally today. But at least I have a voice, because if I didn't have a voice, then we wouldn't have a show. So, but yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it with the latest news and headlines. Obviously, we got a big football Friday coming up tomorrow to preview all the games and do the picks. We have a game tonight, which should be interesting. Also, with that, Trevor Lawrence right now is going to be a game time decision. So, I don't know if anything's going to come out between now and when I finish up the show, because obviously the game is on later today for people that are watching this on the West Coast. So we'll just have to wait and see. Obviously, this is a big game for both teams, especially the Saints, who are trying to get back on the right track. They haven't looked good this season. Their offense is struggling a bit. Their defense is, not as good as I think, people would think, because they have the talent on defense. They just, they're definitely, they had a very good game against the Patriots, shutting them out, but it's the Patriots, so. Yeah, the team definitely should be better than what the record indicates, but for some reason they just are struggling. So it's a big game for them tonight. They're at home, but I don't know. We'll see. But obviously we will preview that towards the end of the show. So, but yeah, Trevor Lawrence's stat. I mean, I think he's going to play, but we'll see. We'll see. And if it's not Trevor Lawrence, then it's going to end up being C.J. Beathard that ends up starting. Now, obviously, we remember him from his 49ers days. So, yeah. So we'll just have to wait and see. Obviously, I don't think any news is going to come out while I'm doing the show right now. So, maybe when I post one of the shorts, I'll update you guys. But obviously, everybody will get the notification if he is definitely playing, and especially if you do fantasy and you have him, then you'll know. Like myself, I have him in one of my leagues. So, but yeah, that's pretty much it with this first segment. So when we come back from our first break, we are going to talk about, speaking of quarterbacks, we're going to talk about another quarterback, the headliner for today's show, and that is talking about Justin Herbert and whether or not he's overrated, because a lot of people are saying that. So we will talk about that when we come back from our first break here on the GSMC Football Podcast.